Hello and welcome along to Mondo Chelloveck Movies. My name is John and this is going to be my Dario Argento collection, and at the end I will rank all my films that I've got from Dario Argento from least favourite to favourite. Now I did have a lot of these, I did have more of these movies in the sort of double and triple dips. I've tried to thin the pack out really as much as I can. I've just tried to stick with one definitive version of the movie, but you'll see that didn't happen entirely, but I'll go more into that in the video. I've got 4Ks here, I've got Blu-rays here, I've got DVDs. I haven't got every single movie that Dario Argento made. I think I'm missing around about 4 or 5, but you'll understand why when I get into sort of talking about these movies. I'm going to go through firstly the movies that he's released as a director. I'm just talking about movies as a director, not a writer or a producer. So I'm going to go through these movies in chronological order. I'm going to talk about the movies in that chronological order that I haven't got and why. Most of the reasons is because they're quite hard to get or they are really poor. Yes, Dario Argento did make some bad films, but I would say that the ones I've got are ones that I think are really good or ones that are sort of coming towards the end of his great period, shall we say. Okay, so first of all, Dario Argento's first film is The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. Now this is the Arrow version. It is the Arrow Special Edition on Blu-ray. It is the 4K remastered Blu-ray. Now what I've done is I've done a sort of full video about my thoughts on this and the 4K. So I'll link that one down below and you can take a bit more of a look of it if you want to find out a little bit more about this movie and also this sort of a release. But I've got to say, if you want to get the definitive Blu-ray of this movie, this is the one. It's got tons of extras in it. It's a lovely this sort of box that Arrow do. You can't touch them for me. I just think they're just knocking out the park every time when they release this special edition version. You can also buy the Blu-ray from here in a standalone version, so it's not as if you've got to buy this version. But if you want to get like the sort of nicest version, the one that's most collectible or looks good on the shelf, I do recommend this one for Blu-ray. Next up is the 4K of The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. This has just come out very recently, and it's very close to that set, as you'll see in the description I put down below in this video. Unfortunately, there is an uptick in the picture and the sound. I do think that it looks better. I do think the colours in here look absolutely amazing. It ports over everything that is in the previous Blu-ray, so it's not as if you haven't got this movie and you want to get the ultimate in picture quality, well, this one's to go for. It will be coming out in a standalone 4K. They will release that separately, but at the moment I think this one's kind of readily available. It hasn't sold out or anything. So I'm going to link down a couple of videos to do with some of these movies in here that I talk about more and fully. But that's The Bird with the Crystal Plumage from 1970, Cat and Nine Tails. This is the special edition Blu-ray, the 4K remastered Blu-ray, packed with extras again. It's got this amazing cover, this amazing art, this amazing sturdy box. It really is like a spectacular release. So it depends where you are with this movie. If you haven't got it at all, or you want to get the 4K only, you might want to wait for the regular edition to come out. It's all about what you can afford, I suppose, at the end of the day. And this is the 4K of the Cat and Nine Tails. Now this again is I'll link these videos down below that I'm going to talk about these more fully. And it's a great release, don't get us wrong. It doesn't come with a Blu-ray at all. So if you want the Blu-ray, it's over there. It's quite a funny thing to say that this release is so close to this one here. All you're getting here is a bit of extra picture quality and also extra sound a little bit, and the actual sort of sharpness of the picture is really good. Don't get us wrong, it's a lovely 4K. So because the Blu-ray was done to such a high quality, it does mean that this sort of the uptick on here is quite small, and it makes you think, oh, it's a bit of a letdown actually. But I don't really think so in my estimation. But there is a more double dips to come later on, but I'm trying to make sure that I don't go there. So next up is the last entry into Dario Argento's Animal trilogy in his 1971's Four Flies on Grey Velvet. Now as far as I know, this is the only really good version out there. It's not a great version, it's sort of passable. The picture quality is a bit average. I think I had problems getting some of the negatives on here, but it's the best one you can buy at the moment, and it's a great film as well. They do call it the lost masterpiece, and you're right, because for years this was really ultra hard to get. In fact, I didn't see it till I had released this Blu-ray a couple of years ago. So for me, it's one that's begging for someone to pick it up and give it a bit of love, because It's a great film. It's probably the best out of the Animal trilogy, and it seems to be sort of not really talked about. It would be great to get, well, a bit more expense there, to get sort of like a box set of this Animal trilogy. I don't think it's ever been done before. So next up, in 1973, Dario Argento released The 5 Days. It's a historical comedy. Now, this has never appealed to me, and it's a good job because you can't find it anywhere. It's one of those movies that I probably would see. I don't think it would be awful, but it's not really in sort of his genre, if you know what I mean. His genre for me is horror and sort of giallos. They're the ones that come across to me as the things that he does best. This film might be a good film, but it's one of those ones you can't track it down at the moment. So I don't want to be a completist with these movies, because some of them will be a large amount of money to pay, and I don't know if I'd have such a good time with it. Next up is 1975's Deep Red. Now, this is the 4K remastered Blu-ray. Now, it's coming out very shortly in the 4K form, and I think we're going to have the same thing as we're talking about with the Bird of the Crystal Plumage and the Cat and Nine Tails. I think the 4K will look quite similar to this. I love this set anyway because it's got the soundtrack in it. The soundtrack to this is just phenomenal. I love it. And this is a great movie. It's probably for me his best Jello movie. And this version here, you can get this one as a standalone release, although it doesn't feature the shorter cut. The shorter cut of this movie for me is the best cut. The longer cut, I think, drags in a few different places. I don't really understand why it should do that, because I love this film that I would like to see more of it. And when I saw the longer one, I thought, nah, the sort of pacing of it is not as good as the shorter version. And that's a rare time that I say that. But yeah, Deep Red, 1975. It's just an absolute classic, and highly recommended if you want to get into Dario Argento. So that's Deep Red from 1975. So next, from 1977, is Suspiria. This is a masterpiece. The 4K on this is phenomenal. This is probably one of the best 4Ks you'll ever see of an old horror film. The colours in here are just unreal. You've never seen nothing like it. The picture quality is pin sharp. I know that they've slogged the guts out to try and get this to the best that they could, and they've done an amazing job of it. This is a great film as well for me. And this is moving away from Dario Argento's sort of giallo movies, which sort of taking a bit of a back step now. You went in a bit more sort of like horror, but more sort of fantasy horror, a bit more sort of story-led, bit witches and that type of thing. It's more sort of suspenseful as well. And if you ever want to get, if you can get it, the 4K from Synapse is the one to go for. There's other ones there. I don't know if you can see that. There's other ones there. There's the Synapse logo. That are, you know, they're all right, but they're just not that good. And that's why I think I've had another 3 or 4 copies of Suspiria, and they've all gone now, because I know that this is the ultimate copy, and I know that I can't ever get any better than this. So this is my one copy. I like having 1 copies of a film if I can do it. So that's 1977's Suspiria. Next up is Inferno from 1980. This is the sequel to Suspiria, and it's part of a trilogy. We'll get more into that later on. And this is the Arrow version. Now, I've got this version here from Arrow, and it's been a long time out, and I do think with Arrow getting in these 4K, proper 4Ks of Dario Argento's films, I do think that this one's going to go to 4K. I would be very surprised if it didn't. So this for me is still in Dario Argento's golden age. I do think that he hadn't sort of started on his dip, that he did get into a dip mine, which I'll talk about a bit later on. So that's 1980's Inferno. Next up is 1982's Tenebree. Now, I've had this movie quite a few times on physical media. I haven't got it at the moment. I did used to have it. The last one I had was on a steelbook, lovely steelbook by Arrow, but I sold that at the time when I was trying to get me some money together to buy my drum kit, which cost £2,000. So the few things had to be sold which had resellable value. Unfortunately, and Tenebree was one of them. But the reason why I've been trying to get, I was going to get this on just a regular Blu-ray from Arrow, but I haven't done that yet, because I do think that this is going to be one of the ones they're going to bring out in a 4K. I'm hoping anyway. So that's why I'm sitting on the fence with it. It would be a day one purchase for me, obviously, but I don't want to have the thing where I'm going, oh, I've just bought a Blu-ray, and the Blu-ray looks really nice as well, and then I go back and they've just released a 4K of it, or they're just talking about a 4K. So I'm sitting on the fence a little bit with this one, but the film itself is absolutely brilliant, and very stylish as well. It's getting a little bit back to the sort of giallo as well. So that's 1982's Tenebree. Next up is 1985's Phenomena. Now, this is an absolutely amazing special edition from Arrow. I do think it's just one of the best ones out there. In fact, it is the best one for a special edition from Arrow. Now, I do think this will come. Well, this is another 4K remaster on Blu-ray. It looks really nice. I do think it will come out on 4K, but I will not be buying the special edition of it because I've done that with Bird of the Crystal Plumage, Cat and Nine Tails, and also I'm going to do that with Deep Red. And I think that's enough for me because I will wait for this one. If it comes out in 4K, I will wait for the 4K to come out on a standard version because I think that this double dipping is starting to get a little bit out of hand, especially with Arrow. I just milking it a little bit. I feel it's not exactly being on the level with these things, bringing these things out quite close to each other. But anyway, this movie, I find that it's another one. As visual movies absolutely just look stunning. Sometimes even if the story's not as great as you would like it, they just look spectacular. And this one for me is an absolutely amazing set. I don't know how easy it is to get a hold of these days, but I'm so glad I got this one. And like I say, I'll not need to get the 4K box set of this one because I think it would probably be exactly the same as this, just with a 4K in it. And I think that's not really the way I want to go with it. I don't want to double dip, especially because they're quite expensive as well. So that's 1985's Phenomena. Next up is 1987's Opera. This is released by Cult Films in the UK. And it was very late to come out in the UK in a Blu-ray. Actually, the Blu-ray for me, it looks really nice as well. I don't know why it took so long to come out, but it has. Will this ever get a 4K? I don't know, but I would like to see it in 4K because there's another one of Dario Argento's really nice looking movies. He's made a few ones that just look spectacular, and you can just sit just ogling at the picture and just what he's put into the composition of the picture. So I do think that sometimes it's worth watching the movie just for what you see on the actual the picture. But I do rate this movie very highly, and I would say unfortunately this was probably the last of Dario Argento's great movies. I would say up until now you could pick any one of these movies and say they are basically a classic. I can't really say that too much for the ones coming up, but which is a bit of a shame. So this is you could say 1987 was the time when he sort of really started. This is the last great one, and then it just started to sort of take that little bit of dip after this. So that's 1987's Opera. Next up is 1990's Two Evil Eyes. This is the 4K from Blue Underground, and it looks absolutely spectacular, as all the Blue Underground 4Ks do. You can't get a better one. So I know that I've got this one, and this is going to be my ultimate version of it. For me, the picture quality is stunning. But this is one. It's a good film. Don't get us wrong. I did really enjoy it, but this is not. I wouldn't say this is classic Argento. Although there's some bits in the movie, the tea shot, the Black Cat episode, it's really good actually. It's got some good I don't know, it's sort of good special effects in the way of sort of camera work and that. But it's not one you would say this is these are the ones here you would say that's definitely a Dario Argento film. This one doesn't seem that much like a Dario Argento movie, maybe because it's shared with two different directors. But I do quite like it, and I do think that it's not a bad movie by any means. And if you can find it, I do recommend it. So that's 1990's Two Evil Eyes. Next up is 1993's Trauma. Now, you could be starting to say that this is the time when Dario Argento sort of like didn't really get things right. Now, I personally think this is a great film. I do like it, and a lot of people don't like it at all. I think this is the time when they started to say, hang on a minute, Dario Argento's made all these amazing movies and he hasn't made a bomb yet, and this one doesn't seem in that way. I can understand that it's not the greatest film. It's not his greatest film, but it's not as bad as everyone thinks. I do think that it's well worth a watch, and I do think it should be put on Blu-ray. I think at this point you can only get it on in the UK on a DVD, and I don't know if it's available elsewhere in a Blu-ray, but I would like to see a bit more love given to this one because I do think it's one of his better later movies. It's not as bad as everyone says. That's 1993's Trauma. Next up from 1996 is the Stendhal Syndrome. Now, I can remember this being, I think this is available on Blu-ray somewhere else in the world, in the US I believe, but I do think that when I watched this one I found it to be a little bit slow. I can't really remember that much about it now. That's why I want to go and revisit this one. I do think it's got a bit of a stylish look about it, whereas some of these other movies don't have a stylish look on the later ones. I think that's a bit of a shame as well that his style of Dario Argento kind of vanishes as well, which is what you want to see. Even you could probably give the film cut a bit slack if it looked spectacular, but the storyline wasn't that good. but I think this one actually does look quite good from what I remember. I do need to rewatch it. I know this film does look good, and I do want to give it a second chance because I haven't really watched it for a long time. I've got no real memory of it. I just remember it being a bit kind of like dull in the fact of it might be a bit long and a bit like long-winded and not really haven't got many of his tropes in it. I'm sure somebody's talking about this coming out in 4K somewhere as well. And if it does look good and it's a decent movie when I watch it again, then I will go for the 4K. But if it's average, I'll just keep it on this DVD. There's no point in buying something for buying's sake. So that's 1996's The Sten Doll Syndrome. Next up from 1998 is The Phantom of the Opera. Now, this is funny that Dario Argento would make a movie like this. I think it's quite good actually, because as a stylish director, you would think that he would make a great movie when it had to do with this subject or this story. Now, I'm led to believe that it doesn't do that at all. Now, I have watched this, I think, but a long time ago. I can't remember anything about it. Obviously, I remember the Phantom of the Opera story. I do need to give this another look because I know it's quite panned. I know this movie isn't really on the top of everyone's Dario Argento list at all, and this is sadly when Dario Argento doesn't seem to be able to make a decent film that much, and it's a bit of a shame actually. But I do need to watch this again because I don't have that much knowledge of it, but I definitely have watched it, but I can't remember a single thing about it, not even any part of the movie at all. So that doesn't bear well, does it? But hopefully on a rewatch I'll get a bit of more of a flavour of it. But I'm not really holding out too much on it because it's widely regarded as one of his sort of like lesser films. That's 1998's The Phantom of the Opera. Next up, Dario Argento released Sleepless from 2001. Now that stars Max von Sydow, and I have seen that movie, and I do think it was quite a decent movie actually, mainly for Max von Sydow to be in that role because he's just such a great actor. And I do want to get that one on some form of physical media. I don't know if it's been released in the UK. It probably has, but I'm not too sure. I think Arrow might have released it on DVD, so I might have to track that one down. Next up is 2004's The Chord Player. Now this movie, the premise of it is a bit more like a giallo. It's a bit more like a sort of cop drama, and there's a serial killer out there, and you think to yourself, he's coming back into that sort of thing. But I've got to admit, it's very gory, but I just didn't really enjoy it. Unfortunately, I don't know why. I do need to rewatch some of these later ones. I'm kind of putting them off because, to be honest, they're not really top my list on films that I sort of need to see. So the last three films that Dario Argento directed are, and I'll have to look down to my bit of paper for this, 2005's Do You Like Hitchcock? Now I'm quite interested, I haven't seen that one, and I'm quite interested to see it because I think that's more about a person who sort of is maybe a serial killer who really likes Hitchcock, and he sort of plays some of them movies out, I'm led to believe. I don't think it's got a very good rating at all, so it's really hard to get as well. A lot of these movies didn't even seem to make it into the UK market, probably because they just weren't that good. So after that came in 2007 Mother of Tears. Now this is the third part in the Suspiria trilogy, and it's meant to be absolutely awful. Now I'm sure I've seen this, but I can't remember anything about it, and I don't even think I got through it, even if I did watch it. And it's meant to be just it's a shame that you had Suspiria and Inferno, which are great movies, and this one came much later down the line in this trilogy. I don't know how it fits into Suspiria or Inferno at all, and I'm led to believe that it's absolutely like awful, and just don't watch it sort of. So I've never tracked it down, I never wanted to track it down. Of course, I don't think you can see it in the UK. You might get it in a cheap DVD, but it's not top of my list at all. So that's The Mother of Tears, 2007. Next up is a movie called Jello from 2009. Now you would think Dario Argento making a movie called Jello, it's going to be brilliant. And I'll tell you what, I've seen it and it is awful. It's a cop drama. The killer is yellow. That's why he looks yellow, because I think he's got some kind of liver disorder. And that's it really. And it's just a really poor film of people trying to catch this killer. And it promised so much and it just delivered nothing. I've got to say it's hopeless. I wouldn't, even if it come out in a special edition from God knows who or where, I would not get it. It's just terrible, and I don't understand again how Dario Argento can go from making these absolutely classic movies to something like Jello, because it was just awful. That's 2009's Jello. And the last film that Dario Argento has made is Dracula 3D from 2012. Now, I'm also led to believe that this movie is a complete disaster. I've never seen it. I don't know if I want to see it. I might want to see it for just sort of curiosity purposes. But apart from that, I've got no intention of seeing it. I don't know if you can even buy it over here. It's another one that's probably nobody's going to release it, because why would they? Because everyone would know. People wouldn't go near it because they know how bad it is. I don't know how bad. I don't know how it's that bad because I haven't seen it. I know it stars Rutger Hauer, so that's good. But in a way, I don't think that helps at all. I just think the film is absolute rubbish. When I heard he was making a Dracula film, I thought, this sounds really good. But I've heard nothing but bad things about that movie. So unfortunately, if Dario Argento does make another movie, he's ended on a really bad note. So that's Dario Argento's filmography, what I've got and what he's released as a director. So now I'm going to go and rank them. So the ones I haven't seen or don't really remember anything about are Dracula 3D, Mother of Tears, Do You Like Hitchcock, and The 5 Days. Now, I would like to see The 5 Days and I would like to see Do You Like Hitchcock. Apart from that, I don't think I've got any interest. If they were ultra cheap somewhere, I might watch them, but are even free on Amazon Prime or something like that. Not that I ever will be. I would watch them there. But to be honest, I've got no really interest. If I never saw them, it wouldn't really bother us about it. I'm a bit of a completist when it comes to people's movies, but there's a certain line that you can't cross sometimes. So anyway, the lowest one I've got on my list, I would say the least favourite. And to be honest, I might be doing them a bit of a disservice, because these ones that I've got, I do sort of like, or think I would like. So bottom of my list at number 16 is Jello. I honestly can't tell you how bad that movie is, especially with the title Jello. You think you could have picked a different title, which would have meant you wouldn't have been so psyched for this movie to think, oh, this is a return to the Jello format. To be honest, the movie isn't really a Jello. It's just like a straightforward, there's a killer out there, we're just going to try and catch him. There's no twists and turns in it whatsoever, and I think the acting as well is absolutely horrendous. So at 15 is The Phantom of the Opera. Now, I need to rewatch this one. I don't remember anything about it, as I've said. I do think I won't have a great time with it. I do think this is when Dario Argento is sort of like, he's finished his golden period and he's sort of in a slump. So I'm going to give it another shot. It might go higher in the list, but to be honest, I don't expect it to go anywhere apart from where it is, more or less one in the very bottom of this list. So that's The Phantom of the Opera. So at 14 is The Chord Player. This movie, like I said, it's not great at all. It's watchable, I suppose, but it's, you see, when you know how good Dario Argento is, if this wasn't a Dario Argento movie, or then it wasn't even mentioned, he took his name off the credits, I might have quite half enjoyed it, but I'm looking for a Dario Argento touch. This is a problem with Dario Argento. He's made that much good stuff that you look for the Dario Argento isms in this movie, and when there's none, you think, wow, anyone could have. That's the thing I thought when I watched this movie. Anybody could have made this movie. Now, when you look at the likes of Suspiria, not anybody could have made that movie. Maybe only Dario Argento could have made that movie that well. That's my sort of take on Dario Argento. So like I say, anyone could have made this movie. It's not that great. So that's The Chord Player. So at number 13 is Sleepless. I don't own it. I would like to own it, actually. I don't know how readily available it is. I'm going to try and look for it, actually, and buy it. But I remember it being quite decent, and I do need to watch it again because, like I say, Max von Sydow puts a good performance in it. I can't remember that too much about it, but I know that it's one that I need to see. So that's Sleepless. So at number 12 is The Stendhal Syndrome. Like I say, this movie might grow on me if I can see it again. I do need to watch a few of these again, if I'm honest. I might have a much better view of them. I do remember at this point, I can say it was stylish, but I do remember it being boring. I can't remember any sort of thing about it. I know it's got to do with art, and I'm a big fan of art, actually, but yeah, wow, it just didn't, it's not memorable, actually. But it does have some Dario Argento isms in it. It does look like a Dario Argento film, so it's got that going for it. So that's The Stendhal Syndrome. At number 11 is Trauma. Like I say, I think this movie gets a bit of a bad deal because it's not bad. It's not great, don't get us wrong. It is a bit sort of giallo-y in a fashion. It's a bit more like a sort of, it's quite gory as well. And it's one that I do think that more people should know about it, actually. If you ever see it, buy it. If you see it cheap in CEX or something, get yourself this movie because it's not bad at all. It's not the greatest one you'll see, but it's not as bad as everyone makes out. So that's Trauma. Number 10 is Two Evil Eyes. Now, I watched this very recently and I must admit I had a great time with it this time around. I found that the two stories in here were absolutely brilliant. They're much better than I remember of it. and the picture quality is stunning as well. So if you can get this on 4K, it's quite cheap as well. I think it's only around about £20 to buy from America or thereabouts, so it's not going to break the bank. And it's not a bad movie actually, and I think the story with that Dario Argento makes in this film is quite watchable as well. It's quite good. So that's the Two Evil Eyes. At number 9 is The Cat o' Nine Tails. It's a great movie. Don't get us wrong. I think all the movies in the top 10 are great movies. Just some are greater than others. This one, I think the story in it's a little bit convoluted. I think it could be a little bit more clearer. The performances in here are absolutely brilliant, and I think that Carl Malden is an outstanding part of this movie. And I don't really think I would ever like the Carl Malden in the movie. I do think that Arrow have done a spectacular job in this. Like I say, check out down below if you want to see more about this release and why you should or should not get it. So that's The Cat o' Nine Tails. At number 8 is Four Flies on Grey Velvet. Now, the funny thing is about this Animal trilogy and Jellos in essence, they all have these sort of strange titles, you know, like the Four Flies on Grey Velvet, and you think, what on earth can that have to do with a movie? And actually does. The Bird with Crystal Plumage, Cat o' Nine Tails, there is a reason why they've got them titles. Now, you might think that does this have anything to do with the movie? But yes, it does actually. And you'd be surprised at how these movies do tie in with the titles. And it's even if you say Bird with Crystal Plumage, which is a massive spoiler, you would never know what that meant until you watch the movie. So that's what I like about this. Even this one here, Four Flies on Grey Velvet, is a massive spoiler. But you'll never know until you watch the movie. You know, so that's what I like about these movies, when you think, what on earth am I watching The Cat o' Nine Tails for? What does that mean? But you find out in the movie. So very good, and that's one of the things I like about Jellos. So yeah, it needs a bit more love, this movie. It's not a bad version, this one, but it's one of the better in the Animal trilogy for me. It's quite underrated actually, but I think it's more because it's like unknown. So that's the Four Flies on Grey Velvet. At number 7 I have Phenomena. A lot of people have this like a lot higher in their lists. In fact, a lot of people have this as number 1 in their Dario Argento movies. It is a great movie, don't get us wrong. Just something about it just doesn't quite connect with me as it does with the other ones that I'm going to talk about. It's a spectacular movie. It's more, I would say, it's more like a fairy tale sort of thing. There's a lot more. It's not based in like real sort of stuff. I mean, not many of these are real, but it's a lot more fantasy led than I think that I like about certain movies. But I'm not taking anything away from it. If you like that sort of thing, it is well done. It's a really good looking movie, and it's got some great sort of lighting in it as well. The lighting here that he does is amazing with lighting. So that's Phenomena. At number 6 is The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. This is it's a great movie. It's one of them. It's one of the first ones I saw. First Giallo. It is classed as the first ever Giallo from 1970. And it's one of the ones that it's more the first ever Giallo that's got that sort of really sort of violent tendency to it. Has been Giallos out there before, but they didn't really show things, and Dario Argento took it to that next level. I must admit I have a great time with this movie. I've seen it quite a few times. I know everything about it, but I like to leave it for maybe a year or two, and then I go back to it, and there's things about it that I don't really remember in it, which I think is great. To me, it's just such a stylish movie, and it's also probably the first ever really violent Giallo movie. I know there's Giallo movies out before this in the 60s, but this is the one that you think, wow, this is taking it to a next level. I'm sure he was influenced by Mario Bava, and then he sort of thought, right, I'm going to put my spin on that, and he has taken this to like a next level. So that's The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. And number 5 is Opera. This is a great movie actually. It's one of them ones where you don't really think that you could make a great movie about an opera, and he does actually. And it's got, like I say, the lighting in here is great. The whole this scene, it's just really absolutely brilliant. It's got some great like murders in here. Makes it sound like a serial killer myself. But I do think that this movie, I do think this presentation on here looks pretty good actually. It's a movie that Arrow never got their hands on actually, and I would like to see I'd like to see someone do a 4K of this movie, because I think it's that good and it looks that good. I think you could get a really good 4K out of it. It's one of those ones that some of these other movies like Chord Player, if someone said to me they're going to bring a 4K version of that movie, I would say why? Because it just doesn't look good. But films like Opera, they look that spectacular that you know it would get it would be so aesthetically pleasing on 4K. And that's one of the best things about 4K, to get that extra sort of detail and colour, which makes these films stand out a little bit more than they used to. So that's Opera. At number 4 is Inferno. This is the second part in this trilogy, the Mother of Tears trilogy. I don't even know what it is, the trilogy called. I think that this movie looks spectacular. I think it's got some, it doesn't make complete sense, but then again, some of these movies, these Italian movies, don't really make sense, but I don't really have to make sense to enjoy it, if I'm honest. I do like a film that kind of makes sense, but the fact that these movies are that pleasing on the eye that you can kind of cut them a bit slack, because they do mean something in a strange way. Think of it like as a bit of a David Lynch movie. Oh, it's not that bad. And have a great time this movie. I do think this movie should be give it, because it's been a long time out, so I think this one could do with a really good fresh 4K remaster or a 4K. I think it will look spectacular, because the Blu-ray itself does look quite good actually. So that's Inferno. At number 3 is Tenebree. This is a great movie. This is probably one of the best you'll see in this sort of Jello murder mystery, like killer trope. And he ticks all the boxes in this one. It does look spectacular actually on the new remaster that they did. So I've got a feeling that this that if they did, that's why I'm holding out. I'm sure they're going to get a 4K of this one, so I don't have to have like 3 or 4 on the shelves. I just want the one version. So unfortunately, I'm kind of in a bit limbo with this movie. I do want to watch it again, but I'm going to have to put it on the back burner at the moment. So that's Tenebree. At number 2 is Suspiria. I can't tell you how much I like this movie. I like everything about it. I like the actual look of the film. You've never seen a film look more colourful in your life, especially a horror film. I like the story. I like the music. The music here is spectacular. I just love everything about it. It's got that many things in the movie that you don't really notice on first. You can get, loads and loads of views out of this, and then pick other things up, about little things that he's just put into the mix. It's so good. It's such a clever movie. It looks like unbelievable. It's one of those movies that's a bit divisive. Some people don't like it, but I watched 10 minutes or so of the reimagining, whatever it was, the newer version of Suspiria, and I didn't like it one bit. The only bit I saw was somebody crying for the first 10 minutes, and I just put it off, and I thought, can't take much more of this. So I don't know how that went. Personally speaking, I just got no time for it. But I can't get enough of this movie, and I'm so pleased to get this, as it should be seen, on a 4K, when they've just went and remastered it to the best of their abilities, and they've just pulled out this absolutely stunning release. It's one of them ones that it's probably if someone said to you, oh well, 4K films don't look good on horror films, and it's just or an old film, you put this on and it'll change everyone's mind. They'll be absolutely stunned by the picture quality. It's reference quality. So that's Suspiria. So number 1 for me has to be Deep Red. Now this is a movie that I saw quite late on in watching Dario Argento's work. This is when I thought, I like this director, I'm going to see some more of his. I saw more of his other films before I saw this one, and I've got to admit that it just instantly clicked with me. It's for me, it's the best ever Jello film that's ever been released. It's so clever. It's got loads of little twists and turns. It's got loads of really excellent murders. It's quite creepy. It's got everything you would want. It's got amazing music by Goblin, who did the music for Suspiria, and you just can't go past it. I can't even begin to say, everyone I've shown it to, my wife, my son, they've all loved it, and they've all got it as well. They've got it, the fact that it's from 1975. It looks a bit dated in a way, but it doesn't really when you sort of you get into it, you look at it. This coming out in 4K, I think the 4K looks stunning. This remastered Blu-ray looks stunning as well. And I don't know if the remastered Blu-ray 4K, when it comes out, it'll have both cuts of the movie on, but when it comes out in the regular 4K, will it have both of the cuts on there? I'm not too sure about that, because when Arrow released the standalone Blu-ray of this, they didn't put the shorter version on. Now the shorter version, as I said, is the best version of this movie, and I would like to see that it got released to somebody, like you can buy it in the streets, because why not? Why keep it to this really hard to get version on here? But that's just my thoughts that might happen. So that's my number 1 Dario Argento movie with a bullet. It is Deep Red from 1975. So that's my Dario Argento collection. It's also my rankings of it. I think I'm going to do the same with Lucio Fulci, who they are my 2 favourite Italian directors. I do like a few other ones, but I don't think I've got enough of them to sort of showcase them things. I think Umberto Lenzi is the one I've got like the next more of, but I don't think I've got enough to I don't know enough about his movies to sort of give you this one. I know more about Dario Argento and Lucio Fulci than anyone else. It is coming up to 51 minutes, this video. I hope it's not 51 minutes when I cut it down. And wow. But if you stuck it to the end, thanks for watching. You take care, and I'll see you next time. Cheers. Phenomena. Do 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 do.